Hey everyone, I just wanted to check in with you and just discuss Project 1. Project 1 is due at the end of this week. Last week I posted the grading criteria for Project 1, and I have that up on the screen right now. So just based on the tutorials that we covered during weeks 2 and 3, the Unity Basics and the Playmaker, your project should hit all those points. It should have Playmaker functionality and should have the basics of Unity, 3D objects and materials, rigid body components, physics, and saving and building the game project. As far as creativity and originality, that's pretty subjective, although I would say that you should go beyond the tutorials. So the gravity project is basically you're knocking dominoes over, you're rolling a ball through, using gravity through a kind of like a Rube Goldberg type machine, which means something that is overly complex to do a simple task. So basically, you're rolling a ball through some dominoes, but you want to make it interesting. I posted last week an example of a finished project, which we'll take a look at in a minute or so. But as far as these bonus perks, there are 30 possible. Visual design document, which I also posted an example of last week, and basic branding and an app icon. So up until this point, we've been fairly casual with the pace of things, but you definitely want to make sure that you're, for this project, which is worth 150 points, you want to go beyond just the tutorials that you've seen. You want to kind of push the limits of what you're learning and do a lot of experimentation. So it should go without saying that you're spending a lot of time. You should be spending several hours every week on this course, and that's no more especially true than this week. So this visual design document, which you should have seen, covers two of them. This has the branding, just a basic name, kind of like a rough logo type, and just sort of runs through an idea of what this Rube Goldberg machine could be. Now, you don't have to stick with this, but it does help give you a direction and give us an idea of what you're going for, and it's a good way to get some ideas on paper, something to refer to. So, like as you're experimenting. So, for example, those little domino bridge or the steps going up and over something, a spring or a elevator type of thing. You'll notice on that final example, this kind of roulette wheel, that was a little complex, and you'd either have to build that or you'd have to find one that's pre-built, a 3D model that you could download or something like that. So that the cars too, I mean, these did not make it into the final version. All right, so let's take a look at the example. You should have looked at this already. I'm not going to blow it up or go into YouTube, but I'm just going to pause it because of the sound effects. But for one thing, there are materials applied to every object, materials that are sort of appropriate, like a red rubber material for this rubber ball. There's wood material on these ramps. These dominoes are actually 3D game objects that were imported, found online at a website that has 3D models. They were free. Same with these coins. So these were things that were found online, and I did include last week under Project Essentials several links to various websites where you can find 3D models, you can find textures, you can find sounds and things like that. So go out and explore and look for things, see what kinds of materials you can find, see what kind of, maybe there's some kind of a 3D object that you want to import. In Bill's video a couple of weeks ago, one of them, he showed you how to create an object in Cinema 4D and import that into Unity. In the similar way, you can find 3D models, like this truck was a 3D model that was not created by the student in the class, but was found online and brought in. And then a Playmaker state machine was attached to it, which gave it some functionality. The student added the smoke as a particle system, and that's something that is by no means is that a requirement. That's way above and beyond what we're doing right now, because it takes a lot of experimenting with the particle system to create this sort of realistic looking or appropriate type of smoke effect, which is going in a particular direction. Okay, but if you're curious about that or you want to try it, I did post a video this week that I think is pretty good and can show you how to do that. So a lot of the stuff is above and beyond, but one thing that you should shoot for in this project is you want to delight your viewer or your player. I mean, you should think about it, just have fun with it and delight. You know, if you can't delight yourself with what you're doing, you're not going to delight the person that's viewing it. And delight is not a word that I use very often, but that seems like the most appropriate word for something like this. Okay, that's how you can kind of know that you're in that zone where it's hitting that creativity, originality mark. Okay, so let's take a look at this week some of the things that I have for you. I did create a test, I'm calling it a test, where I created this, what I'm calling a perpetual motion machine. And this ball will go land on this elevator, go up the elevator, and come back down on the ramp, and it'll just go on and on and on, kind of just in perpetuity. If you want to add an elevator type object to your game, that's an option. Again, you should create a Playmaker state machine, and you need to look through actions to find out what sort of action you would apply to an object to make this sort of elevator effect, some kind of a transform action. All right, so I have a tutorial that shows you how to create these ramps. They're like these V-shaped kind of ramps. And then I have another tutorial which shows you how to add sound. So if you noticed, I have sound effects that happen when the ball hits a surface or an object. It makes a particular sound. And that's something that I would like you to add to your project as well. And then I did find a tutorial about adding, creating a smoke effect. So again, that's something that is way above and beyond, but if you're curious about it or want to experiment, that's fine. All right, a few housekeeping tips. So one thing I noticed is that a lot of students who, when they're creating their builds, they're not creating a windowed build. So you want to make your builds windowed so that when we open them up, they don't take over our entire screen. And in order to do that, it's pretty simple. You just, when you go to build settings, you go under player settings. And then under player, you want to go to resolution and presentation, and then just choose windowed in this full screen mode. All right, by default, it's full screen mode, and you need to choose windowed. All right, mine was already there because I've created a build from this project. And by the way, one of those bonus perks was creating an icon for your build. So here's the way you do that. You can select a texture. All right, so there's some default ones. You can grab a texture from your or textures folder, and you can even create your own if you want to. You can create your own image, drag it into your textures folder, and then you should be able to select it in here. All right, so that's an option. Another sort of a housekeeping thing is when you're sharing links to your files, a lot of students are just pasting the link inside of their posts in Blackboard, and if we click on them, we're getting an error saying they can't be opened. The problem is that Blackboard doesn't allow us to just open links directly within it. So you need to go to this Insert Edit Link tool and choose Open Link in New Window. Now I've already done that, so mine's already set to that, but by default it's going to be Open Link in Current Window, and that's what we don't want. So you need to set it to Open Link in New Window. In terms of submitting your project for grading, and this week you're going to be sharing it to the discussion board, sharing your builds to the discussion board for the benefit of your classmates and for me, and make comment on your process or difficulties you've had or things that you've learned, and feel free to provide some constructive feedback or comments on your classmates' work as well. But in order for me to grade this using a rubric, in other words, in order for me to grade this based on criteria that you can see, I need you to provide the link to your builds to the project link. So inside, under course projects, inside project 1, the first item is an upload assignment area. All right, and I need you to, under write submission text, I need you to paste the link to your builds and then hit submit. And it's really important that you hit submit, otherwise it's not going to go through. All right, so that will activate the rubric and will allow me to grade directly in Blackboard so that that grade appears in your My Grades, okay? And it'll allow me to make comments within Blackboard, and it will add the points to your total grade. So it's really important that when you submit your assignment or you submit your project files, you're sharing them on the discussion board, but you're also submitting them through this Project 1 upload assignment area.